Hey everyone, I'm Phil Yee, CEO of One Camouflage, and today I'm bringing you 14 pieces of American-made gear that I took with me to the mid-range rifle class at Thunder Ranch. I went to mid-range rifle course a few seasons ago because I wanted to prepare for an upcoming Wyoming antelope hunt, and I had just gotten this new Tika T3, and I wanted to get familiar with it. For those of you who don't know about Thunder Ranch, they're the Harvard of firearms instruction in the country. Clint and Heidi Smith have built a tremendous business on a tremendous piece of land up in Lakeview, Oregon. I went in September, and it ended up being just a wonderful experience. Before I get into the gear, I just want to share with you a couple lessons learned from the course. Kit Badger has an excellent, more in detailed review on the course, but I did want to share with you 3 lessons learned. The first is more magnification is not necessarily better. And what I found was before I took the course, I'd really dial up the scope to max power when I'm trying to shoot something, thinking that having more visibility of the target would actually be a better thing. What I found was that actually it was better to dial it back down and be able to see more of the target, even though it's kind of counterintuitive. I found that I was actually hitting better when I was at lower power magnification. The second is really simple. When you have a bipod, I learned to do what's called loading the bipod, and that's actually to put kind of pressure onto the bipod and really get that bipod to feel like it's loaded up. That made my shots a lot more accurate. The last lesson learned was that outside of 500 yards, what separates the boys from the men is the windage call. It's really not the drop, and it's not the scope, and it's not the round. It's really how well are you calling wind and how well are you dialing or holding for wind. Outside of 500 yards, wind was really everything. So let's get into the gear. First, I'm going to start with the equipment, and then I'll go into the clothes and stuff like that. First, the Pelican 1720 here. This is a made in America hard shell case. Many of you probably know it. Many of you probably own it. I use this. I bought the pick and pluck foam on the inside so that I could put my rifle, my magazines, my bag, all the little bits and bobs inside of it in a really organized fashion, and ended up traveling with this. It took all the beatings that the airlines gave it. I would say it was fantastic. It was excellent. It is heavy though, and it's really heavy when you load it down with equipment on the inside. I know Pelican makes an air line that's a lot lighter weight and still very burly. A friend of mine has one, and he took it to with him when we went on that Wyoming hunt. It was significantly lighter, so that's on my radar. But the Pelican cases are exceptional. They're American made, and it was a wonderful piece of kit for me. The second is the rifle. This is a heavily modified Tika T3. It's empty and clear. I know that Tika rifles are obviously not American made, right? They're from Finland. But man, they are excellent rifles. I kind of get around to being okay with putting this in the video because I heavily modify this with a bunch of American-made parts and equipment. And so starting with the stock, this is a Macmillan Game Warden in Forest Camo. It's a custom stock through their custom stock program. I purchased this several years ago. I really like the Game Warden profile. It fits the Tika T3 exceptionally well, and it was just a wonderful piece of kit to have that made the Tika perform even better with that rigid stock. Because if you guys know, the Tika polymer stocks that come with the rifle, they just aren't that inspiring. They're pretty cheap feeling, looking. I hear they work pretty well, but they just don't seem great. So the Macmillan Game Warden, excellent piece. Another piece of equipment that I brought with me, this was my scope, and I'll explain why it's kind of tangentially American made. This is the Night Force NX8 2.5 to 20 by 50 first focal plane scope. This was an excellent scope for the class, but it's not technically American made. In fact, it's assembled in America, but it's assembled with Japanese glass and parts. And so if you actually look at the scope, it'll say made in Japan versus made in America. Listen, I understand the FTC's kind of guidance on what it takes for something to be called made in America. And generically speaking, the guidance is that the majority of the value of the item has to be American. And in this case, when you have, a couple $1,000 scope and the raw materials like the glass and stuff like that, which make up a ton of the value of the scope, are from Japan, what's American is the labor of assembling it all together. The labor is just outweighed by the cost of the glass. So again, this is technically made in Japan. Night Force does have some scopes that are fully made in the USA. I think their Acutac line is fully made in the USA, and I've heard a couple of their other scopes are American made. But to me, this is close enough. This scope was excellent. It was clear. It has a Mil XT reticle on it, so the mid-range rifle course is in Mil, not MOA, and so I had this Mil reticle. It was excellent. It wasn't too busy, but it gave me enough granularity so that I could really hold for windage and for elevation. Really enjoyed the scope. Night Force is an excellent product. Next up is the bipod. This is the Acutac BR4 Gen 2 bipod. I put this on my rifle. This was an excellent bipod, and as y'all who are in the bipod space know, there's a lot of different options. Acutac has a pretty solid reputation. I liked it because it just seemed a lot burlier than some of the other options. Of course, it's in this video because it's made in the USA. Excellent bipod. I really do like the ability to change elevation on it rather quickly by pulling out the legs, and then if you want to go down, you can just hit a little button and it goes down immediately. It's also just really solid in terms of its construction. The swivel on it gives you nice range of motion, but it's also not too weak. There's enough strength in there to not over travel when you're moving this thing around. But this Acutac bipod was excellent, highly recommended. I wouldn't take this hunting, if I'm honest. It's a little heavy for hunting. I think the other bipods that are available, or shooting sticks if you prefer, are probably better alternatives for the weight. I think this is great for a class environment or for a tactical shooting environment. Next up, Mountain Tactical Mags. Mountain Tactical is an excellent company. They make their products in the United States. Their specialty is aftermarket parts for the Tika T3 or the Tika T1 now too. This is made out of billet aluminum, 6061 billet aluminum. I needed some extra magazines in addition to the ones that Tika provided me, and these worked really, really well. And it has a nice feel to it as well. It's a little bit heavier and more solid than the kind of plastic Tika magazines that you get through Tika. So check them out, Mountain Tactical. They have a whole range of other pieces of aftermarket parts for the Tika T3. They've got bottom metal, they've got bolt shrouds, all sorts of stuff. Excellent company. I'll put the link in the description for them and all of this kit as well. All right, next up is this cross-tacked rear bag. I really didn't know why I needed a rear bag. I thought it was superfluous, but man, when I went to that class, I really learned the value of having something as simple as this little cross-tack rear bag. This is also made in the USA by Crosstack. They make outstanding accessories for shooting. Here's the thing about a rear bag, especially one that's this size. When you're in the prone position and you've got your set up with your rifle, having this rear bag and having that bottom end of the rifle buttstock kind of sitting on this, what really helped for elevation changes that were minute was the ability to squeeze the bag, and it would lift up or lower the back end of the rifle and kind of allow you to get the the right elevation setting without necessarily moving the front part of your rifle, or certainly your bipod would be too gross of a movement. And so this squeezable rear bag really helped you get minute elevation changes. And I didn't really learn that until I bought this and tried it out. But now it's an essential piece of kit for me on any sort of rifle class scenario. I don't know if I'd bring this with me hunting. I think it might be, just something that is really, really appropriate for the class environment when you're prone and you're in this kind of fixed position for a long period of time. But this is an excellent piece of kit. The last piece of gear before we get into clothes is this Rite in the Rain notebook. This was an essential piece of equipment because we were in our notebooks a ton. We were doing everything from drawing and sketching out the range and all the various distances of the targets and the colors of those targets, as well as key features of the terrain. And then this is also obviously where we would write down our dopes, what our dopes were. I was shooting a 270 Winchester. The majority of the class was shooting either 6.5 Creedmoor or 308. I think we had one 30-06 shooter. But 270, the dope's a little bit different than a 308 and a 6.5 and a 30-06. And so as we were shooting 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, up to 700 yards, it was important for me to understand and dial in my dope and then write it down here. As we got into later portions of the class, we were also kind of forced to do some mental math where we would dial for a certain amount and then hold for a certain amount so that we could easily switch engagement distances without necessarily having to dial every time. And so knowing what your dopes are and being able to do that math quickly was a key part of the course. This Rite in the Rain notebook, it's excellent. It's American made. It's got this cover. You guys probably know the brand. The notebook kind of slides into this cover, but I think this cover is a nice additional feature. You should check them out. Okay, let's go to what I wore, and I'll go kind of head to toe. First is Ear Pro. I learned a lot about hearing protection in that class. I originally brought some foamies, and I don't have them with me, but you should check them out, and I'll put a link in the description. They're called Max foamies. They're American made. They're incredibly comfortable, and they come in a nice kind of plastic box container that is a great form factor for you to travel with and stuff like that. Those are my favorite foamies. I thought I could just use foamies, or I thought I could just, be like Hickok 45 and just use this over the ear kind of headband or neckband type hearing protection. But I quickly learned when I was there that I would need to wear over the ear protection. And frankly, I probably needed to wear double. And the reason why is we're on this firing line with a ton of other folks and guns. And what I found was that most people had muzzle brakes or muzzle devices of some sort, not silencers or not suppressors. And when you're a couple feet away from someone with a muzzle brake and you're prone, the blast is unbelievable. It's certainly deafening, but it's kind of almost concussive. They did have these little partitions made of particle board that they would put between folks that had the muzzle brake so that you're just not constantly getting the blast on you. But it had a kind of concussive force. And so ultimately, I ended up with those Max foamies, and then I put passive hearing protection over the foamies. These aren't American made. And the other over the ears I have are from MSA. Those are more tactical and that they're from Sweden. But I did find a brand that I'm going to buy, and that brand is called Pro Ears. They're American made. They have over the ear, really high quality, electronic shooting, hearing protection. And so you should check them out. I'm going to be checking them out too. All right. After Ear Pro, we'll go to Headwear. I wore kind of a ball cap like this to the class, and I quickly learned that it wasn't going to work for me for two reasons. One is the eye relief on my scope, the way I had set it up, was really kind of getting in the way. This bill was getting in the way and hitting my scope, especially if there was recoil. And so it was kind of sometimes tapping the front of my bill, and that would distract me and just take me out of the zone for the follow-up shot. And so I ended up, in certain cases, kind of turning my hat to the side or completely backwards in order to kind of avoid that. The other thing is, for those that have been to Thunder Ranch, the weather there is insane. I was there in September. Um, it was 75 degrees out, and then it was like 30 something degrees out. The swings were unbelievable. And so I found just wearing a beanie was really helpful when you're prone and you're getting kind of cold. Plus, the beanie obviously doesn't have the bill, and so it doesn't get in the way of your scope and the eye relief. I have two beanies. One is by a company called Black Rock Gear. This is a down-filled beanie. Unfortunately, they went out of business right around COVID, and so you can't get new ones, but I'm sure you can find them used or on eBay. This is an excellent beanie. It's down-filled and it has a nice little comfortable liner in it. Keeps your head incredibly warm. You should look them up, Black Rock Gear. The second beanie is by Enlighten Equipment, which actually is in stock. They still make them today. This is called the Torrid. This has a little bit of a different shape, as you can see here. Kind of covers more of the ear, and they're making this a ton of stuff out of Winona, Minnesota, like quilts and other nylon and kind of insulative gear. But Enlighten Equipment Torrid beanie, it was excellent as well. I'll go to the jacket here. I didn't necessarily wear this on the range when I was shooting, but again, it was fairly cool in the evenings, and I wanted something to wear that didn't make me look like G.I. Joe, tactical guy that was at a shooting class. And so I brought this jacket with me. This is one of my favorite jackets. It's by Schaefer. They're a company out of Fort Worth, Texas. And a lot of their stuff is American made. It's kind of Western gear. If you think about Yellowstone, I think a lot of their products were in the Yellowstone series. But this is somewhat old, and it's well worn. What I love about this jacket is that it's blanket lined. And so it's a lot warmer than just their non-lined jackets. And it was perfect for going out to dinner in Lakeview after class. But excellent piece of kit, American made, Schaefer jackets. The vest that I'm wearing right now is actually by One Camouflage, our company. It is currently out of production. It's called the Safari vest. And there's one reason why I'm so glad I brought this vest. It's because the Safari vest is designed to have two pads on the inside of it right here on the shoulder. And why did that matter? Well, we shot 400 rounds over the course of 3 days. And 400 rounds at 270 actually hurts, right? My shoulder was dying by day 3. And I put this vest on, and with a little bit of a pad on it, inside of it here, it just made the recoil so much more manageable. I know maybe I'm a wuss, but I'm telling you, you go and shoot 400 rounds of 308 or even 6.5 Creedmoor or 270, you're going to feel it certainly over the course of 3 days. This vest was excellent because it has that pad. Again, we don't make this right now, but we are playing around with special editions out of really cool fabric from Weather Wool. If you guys know about Weather Wool, it's an amazing American-made wool fabric that we're thinking about re-releasing this vest in that fabric. So stay tuned for that. Next up, pants. I wore two different kinds of pants that are American made. The first is the ones I'm wearing right now. These are the Cry Precision. These are the Gen 3. These are actually now over 10 years old. I really liked these pants. They're a little tactical, obviously, but it's a class at Thunder Ranch, so you can get away with it. I love the fit of them. For me, the waist fits perfectly. I love the Velcro on the knee and on the ankles that you can kind of cinch down. But what was also really helpful is that the Cry Precision pants have that knee pad that you put in there. And when you're prone, again, just anything that puts a little bit of cushion between you and the aggregate rock that's down there at the base of the firing line is a welcome comfort. So check out Cry Precision. Most of you guys who are in the tactical space know about Cry. They are not cheap. Cry or die, or buy once, cry once. They like to say those things. It's true. They are not inexpensive, but again, this is over 10 years old, and it's still going very, very strong for me. The other pant that is American made, and I think it's, the lesser known cry, the thinking man's cry, if you will, is by a company called Beyond Clothing. I think they're out of Seattle or the Pacific Northwest area. These are 50/50 nylon cotton, ripstop, M81 camouflage, very similar in cut to the cry, very similar in features. They, have the Velcro straps down at the bottom. They have adjustment also at the knee. They don't have the knee pad, but you can put knee pads in there, which I like almost a little bit better, because if you take the knee pads out of your cries, they look a little bit weird. Beyond Clothing is outstanding. They have a ton of U.S. military contracts, just lesser known. And if you like some of the lesser known stuff, you should check them out. Lastly is my belt. I wore this belt by Milt Sparks. Milt Sparks is a leather company, I believe out of Idaho. They're really famous for their leather holsters, and I have several of those. But I also was really intrigued by this belt because it's really, really solid, handmade. It has a feature that I have not seen in many belts, which is that if you notice, there's a little curve in the belt, and that naturally happens when you wear any belt. If you look at all your leather belts, you'll see that there's actually a curve in it, just by the way that our bodies are constructed. And but this belt is actually cut with that curve in mind, right? So it doesn't come dead straight when it's brand new. It actually comes curved like this, and so it's kind of curved for what's eventually going to happen anyway to your body. Outstanding piece of kit. I love the cowboy stitching on it. I've got two of these, one plain and one with this cowboy stitching. And then what I also like about the Milt Sparks belts is it's got this brass buckle. And again, when you're lying prone for hours a day, just having a nice flat, low profile buckle just minimizes you having to think about there being a little bump there at your waist that's distracting you from doing your business. So check out Milt Sparks for their belts and their leather goods. All right, everyone, those are the 14 pieces of American-made gear and kit that I brought with me to a mid-range rifle class at Thunder Ranch. I hope you enjoy. Please like, subscribe. Please give me comments. I'd love to hear if there are other gear requests that you want, or if you have brands that you love that are American-made. Please put them on my radar. I'd love to check them out and do more content for you. This is Phil Yee from Day One Camouflage, out.